If you could change the past, would you? If you could travel back into time and change history, would you do it? Imagine all those opportunities in your past that you lost. Imagine anything that could have happened that didn't come to happen. It's all there. Everyone's there. It is a world of endless possibilities. Like this one narrator says, an infinite outcomes. The past is where it's at, not the future. There are those who are trying to take my narrative away from me again. And once again, I find myself having to make this video. It's almost like pause for station identification. And re-identify who I am. It was in 2010, after I left the football club in Ipswich. I'd finished publishing my first children's book. Memories resurfaced and I began to remember things that had happened earlier in my life in the state of Texas. And I'll keep it to the point. I don't want to go waffle on different subjects and confuse you, but there were memories of military people. There was memories of a girl with long black hair. In the middle of it all, we were both lost, and we were both captives and in the custody. It was a time of great danger and great pain and fear. I was remembering very clearly how it began. I got a phone call at my house. My mother came in and told me there's a girl on the phone. I was speaking to girls at the time in the city of Arlington. And the girl was very monotonous when she spoke, very calm, and she was telling me things, quite extraordinary things, that she knew how my bedroom looked and what's on my mind. She could read minds, and she made the claim to me that she was an alien, part human hybrid, and that she was in the custody of the government, of some intelligence services, I don't know, the military, and that they were going to be bringing her to me and using her as a weapon to scare me. That I had met someone earlier that year, a woman claiming to be a lost mom, and that they knew the future, that the government could see what the events were in the future. Somehow they had a way of doing this, some captured technology that wasn't theirs. And they were able to see that in the future I was telling one story, and they wanted me to tell another story at the same time. That somewhere along the way I would be talking about her. And they wanted to discredit me. And for some reason or another, these people can't put a bullet in my head and kill me. But they went to the trouble to bring this girl to me. She said there was an opportunity to go with her at some point in my life, that it would be presented, that somewhere down the line this would happen. I thought it was a prank call from some friends in Arlington that they put a girl up to this. I didn't believe it at first. I didn't believe anything. I thought the whole thing was a bit suspicious, until the girl carried on giving me details about my life no one knew, and that she said that she and these others had been taking me in the night, that I was what some would call an alien abductee, and that I was being taken, and we'd met before, but I didn't remember it. And I felt like I'd known her, and there was this connection or love or something. Now, I'm not saying this is a girlfriend or wife or anything like that. This was some kind of a connection of love of something. And we spoke for hours. And I very much wanted to carry on talking to her. And how she got my number, how she was able to contact me, is left to guess at. Did they put her up to that? Did they tell her to call me? I don't think so. I don't think they knew that she was doing this. She said she was telepathic and she could read minds. Was she able to do like what electric eels do? Create some electric field in her brain, like how eels can create hundreds of volts and transmit those thoughts through carrier waves in a telephone line? Was that why at times she sounded a bit like she was fading off? Was she using a telephone network on some base without them being aware? I don't know. So, it's not out of the range of possibility. Even, like I said, we have electric eels that can produce thousands, hundreds of thousands of volts from a salt in a solution in their body. Some have even suggested eels can communicate their thoughts to each other electrically. And it's possible that in the water, dolphins do the same. They create electric fields and whales, and they can transmit this through water. So telepathy is not science fiction, it's a science fact. This is something that is where science, biologists are beginning to open up to in nature on Earth. An intelligent person who has the power to create hundreds of volts from their body would be probably, yeah, in theory, could transmit their thoughts into carrier waves and communicate through mobile phone networks without having to make a phone call. They could just sit there and think and transmit thoughts over great distances or over electronic equipment. So the idea that she called me is not far-fetched or stupid. It's quite possible that this is how she reached me. A few nights later, I was outside my mother's property listening to my headset, my Walkman. I had a tape player at the time. And I looked inside my mom's mobile home. I looked inside. She was sitting on the couch watching TV. I don't know, I just glanced in. And she seemed to stare at the ceiling kind of funny for a minute like this. And she went like that. And then she fell over sideways like she passed out. Like something got into her head and passed her out. My stepdad was playing his guitar, I think, and he stopped. And I guess the same happened to him. Before I could get inside to check to see if they were okay, I see these black Range Rovers driving into our courtyard. I don't know, 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night. We lived in a dead end, a courtyard. It was only our mobile home, our neighbor right across from us, and the one across the street was abandoned. So there was really no one else around in that courtyard, and the rest was surrounded by trees. But that doesn't mean I don't have witnesses. The police were in the area, and later I have found police officers from that time that do remember what I'm telling you. There were Range Rovers that drove into the courtyard, about 8 or 9, 10 black Range Rovers, all the same, drove in the courtyard and parked up. And there was a line of them going down the end of the street. Out of these vehicles jump a bunch of these combat soldiers with helmets, with automatic weapons and guns, and they run around the property. And they were running over into Mom's property. I remember looking over to my left, and my dogs were barking like crazy, and I said, that's private property. My mom had a 3-foot high fence around her 125-foot long property. It's 125 foot by 90 foot. It's a great big property. And I said, it's private property. And they were running around, taking up positions all around, surrounding where I was in the courtyard. A bunch of soldiers got out that weren't armed, stood in the middle of the courtyard. And I could see from my mom's porch light as it shined into the middle of the courtyard, and my neighbor, the house, the trailer across the street was abandoned, but the porch light was on, shining back this way. And my neighbor right to my right was in his home, but he lived on his own. Whether he was there or not, I don't know, but his porch light was shining out. So the courtyard, though it was dark, was illuminated by light from different sources. So I could see there was a full bird colonel. That's high rank. That's one below general in our military. And I could see the silver colonel rank on his collars. He gets out. He's an old guy, and he goes walking to the middle of the courtyard, and a bunch of people get out and salute him, and he takes up position there. There was a blonde, tall, husky woman, and I identified her rank because I was in the Army. She had sergeants, like a sergeant ranks on her collar. She stands up by the fence where I was standing inside my mom's property. And I thought, because I had been in the Army, this is something to do with the Army. I've messed up somehow. This is paperwork issue. They're here to arrest me. And I said, this is kind of an overkill, don't you think? I mean, I think you send a few MPs to pick me up. You don't need 35 armed guards here. I thought, my God. I mean, my heart was racing. I was farting and passing gas. I was scared. I was like, I was like, shit. Look, if this is to do with something, if there's something I did wrong in the Army, you don't need this kind of, I'm unarmed. And she's like, what are you talking about? She said, I'll answer all your questions if you step off the property and stand next to me. Otherwise, I won't answer your questions. So I came off the property, legs shaking, and I walked by her, bearing in mind I was 20 years old. And I stood there and I said, what's going on? She says, I'm not answering your questions. Not yet. I'm not saying anything. And I thought, oh shit, I'm in big trouble. What did I do in the Army that would have done this? Did I kill somebody I don't know about? What the hell? And then one of the Range Rovers, a door opened, and this short, black-haired girl walked out, kind of spindly armed. At first, at a cursory glance, she looked like an ordinary girl. And I thought, you need this much combat support for a child? So what's the matter with you people? She's just a girl. And no one's saying anything. And she just kind of stands there for a minute with her hair. She had a fringe and she was standing like this. Then I looked at her and I thought, my God, that's really good. How do you do that? That's like a Jim Henson Muppet. How do you make that move like that? And no one's saying. They're very quiet doing this. And I said, how do you do that? And I looked at her. She had 4 finger digits. It's like take off your pinky. It was like this. Just like that. But it was uniformed. It was just like looking at this. And she had like longish arms in a black uniform with some kind of a blue triangle. It's like the civil defense triangle for America, but it wasn't to do with America. It was a blue triangle. I think there was a circle around it on her uniform, a blue triangle. And I looked at her and I thought, and I looked again, I noticed her eyes were a bit larger than ordinary eyes. They weren't like, I mean, sometimes I've drawn her with big, I don't mean these eyes. It was like, it's like how you remember something, your brain confabulates a bit. And it's like the eyes. And I keep trying to remember. I know the eyes were big. And so, but they weren't like grossly big. And she had a small chin and a little nose. And it's like looking at a Japanese girl who's gone through some kind of mutation, to be polite. And I looked, and then I'd seen Oprah Winfrey documentaries in the 1980s about alien abduction. I had heard about the so-called alien-human hybrids. And I remember saying to myself repeatedly, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, this is true, this is all true. Oh my God, these women were telling the truth. She's a hybrid. I was like, oh my God, oh my God. And I was like, I was shaking. My legs were shaking. I mean, I was like hands, and I was like, oh my God, it's true. The stories are true, this is true. And then she looked up at me, and in that moment, I stopped feeling like, I don't know about fear, but everything calmed. I felt so good. And I'm like, you're the one that was on the phone to me. And I thought it. And then I thought immediately how sweet she looked. And I wanted to hold her. And all at once she walked up to me. I held her. Well, first she walks up, and when she got near me, the sergeant lady like chaperoned this and says, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" And she looks at her and she says, "It's okay," but she doesn't move her mouth. And I thought, how did I hear that? You didn't move your mouth. And then the sergeant lady says, "Excuse me," she says, "What do you see? What do you see? Describe what you're looking at in detail." And I said, "It's a short girl, about 4'6", black hair, fringe, with these larger than normal eyes and irises, big irises, little nose, little mouth, and four-fingered, and some kind of a uniform." I said, and I even joked, I said, "It looks like something out of the 80s, like a Devo, Gary Newman's Cars uniform." I always try to make joke of things. And I said, "It's some kind of a like retro 80s onesie uniform." I don't know what it was. She says to the girl, "Why are you letting him see you as you are?" So in other words, she could have made me see her look like a normal girl. She could have projected into my mind the image of a normal girl standing there. An ordinary girl, not normal, but ordinary. And I heard her say to the sergeant, "It's important that he sees me as I really am." And then someone said something, "What's going on?" And she's like, "No, leave it, leave it." The sergeant says, "Leave it." And then I held her. And I remember she put her arms around me and hugged me, and I hugged her. Her skin was very smooth. I remember I pressed my mouth against her forehead like this. And I remember feeling her body was very hot. Very, 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 very hot. It was like, was she running a fever? Was that the normal temperature for their bodies? If she had a larger brain or generated an electric field, that would make sense. And thinking of it scientifically, she was very hot. Like our temperature is 98.7 Fahrenheit. She was something like 102, 104 Fahrenheit. So I say 37 Celsius is normal for our body temperature, 38 Celsius. I think she was something like 41 Celsius, 44 Celsius. You could feel the heat coming off her. And then immediately there was a cold sensation come over my body, like being electrically shocked or charged. And so she gave off a very strong electric magnetic field. And so it wasn't just that she looked that way, it was the fact that her body was something that was charged electrically. And even after, when she got pulled away from me by these soldiers, she reached out and wanted to keep holding me, and I wanted to hold her. Then they went to pull her away. And she said some things to me before they did that. She says, they're scared. What you're going to see is their reaction out of fear. This is why they're being this way. You need to forgive them, she said. You have to forgive them. You belong to us, Jason. She said, you belong to us. It's the same story I've given for 11 years. Same exact story. I'm having to make this video again because people are trying to take the narrative away from me and say, Jason said he's got an alien for a girlfriend. No. I have an encounter from what's called a MyLab experience, military abduction experience. These are things that happen, MyLabs. There are a lot of people claim to be abducted by the military in America for all sorts of reasons. They've been put up in front of beings similar to this and have told similar stories. Why this is happening is anybody's guess. And she said, I won't let them use me as a weapon to scare you. They're trying to use me as a way to scare you. I could feel every thought and feeling in her head. She projected it to me. We were connected in our phone chat. Somehow she, and I agreed to it. She says there's some kind of a connection, quantum connection. Physicists would understand it. And she said I can only do this once with a partner of my race. She said, but this is a connection. If we don't do this, we won't survive what's coming next. She said, you won't survive it psychologically, emotionally. It'll destroy you. She said, but I need this, you need this. She said, we're going to go through this experience together, but we have to do this. And so we connected. I just laid there and meditated. She said, you just have to stay calm, and I'm going to project me into you. So on the phone chat, she projected something of herself into me. So when we met up on the road, I could feel every thought in her head, every feeling. She was scared. And when they grabbed her and pulled her away, they were violent with her. They began to grab her hair. And then one of them electrically shocked her with a stun gun, and it was painful. And when every time they grabbed her, I could feel it. And when they shocked her, I could feel that. It was like, and I was grabbing my own head. And then this colonel was like, what's going on here, Sergeant? And she says, sir, he somehow connected to her. They've had some kind of prior contact to this. They didn't know. And then one of the soldiers was a young Air Force soldier or something. He says, what is this, your fucking girlfriend? What are you, a freak? Is this your fucking girlfriend, you freak? And the sergeant had tears in her eyes from all that was going on, and she shouted at him to shut up or she was going to break his neck, kick his ass. She didn't like what was going on, but she was having to follow orders. You could see that. So it was like a very dramatic, hectic night. And I won't go on. I'm going to leave it at that. The night obviously ended. The next day, the days after, there was a lot of recall going on. It just kept coming back. And there was a guy that said he was a dog. He was a dog. He came to my house and he said, I work for the city. I'm a dog pound officer or something. And I looked at him and he's in this uniform and I said, wait a minute, I recognize you. I said, you're familiar to me. I know you. I said, you're one of those soldiers that was there that night. And he says, you're not supposed to be remembering this. Why do you keep remembering this? We have to keep coming back here and get you to forget this. There's a technology called a brain taser. It's a low voltage device. If you electrically shock the side of your skull, I remember them doing this to me in that time period. And it can suppress memories and induce amnesia. The technology is very real. And for some reason, maybe because of my connection with this girl, they kept trying to induce amnesia, so I would remember. And there was something about the fact that in the future I would be remembering, but then was not the time. It was inconvenient to be talking about it then. Had I been talking about it then, I would have been all the UFO conferences. I would have met Dr. John Mack back then in the 1990s, Bud Hopkins, everybody. I would have been all over everywhere. And I was shouting at them. I'll go back to that point. When they were hurting her, I was shouting. I was crying. She has a life. She has feelings. Leave her alone. Don't do this to her. Don't harm her. Don't do this. She has feelings. She's a person. I was very frustrated because I thought, who's going to believe this? I was very, very frustrated in that moment because I thought, one, no one's going to believe they even exist. Two, they're going to think this is crazy. Three, she has no citizen. I remember thinking very legally, I'm watching an assault on someone who's very innocent and passionate, and they have no citizen rights. Who would protect her? The United Nations would if they knew they were even real. If the UN knew they were real and they had contact with the United Nations, they would certify them as citizens of some. They would give them citizenship to protect them. And that's the basic of it right there in 24 minutes. There it is. I don't want to go into all the rest. Obviously, when the memories resurfaced in 2010, it became it's a post-traumatic stress disorder incident. The thing about post-traumatic stress disorder, you don't get to edit the memories. It makes you see exactly what happened. Veterans of the Vietnam War, when they had post-traumatic stress disorder, saw in detail friends that died in combat in front of them. They relived it. Children that died you know, things that happen, accidentally shooting someone they cared about. But the point being, with post-traumatic stress, you see what happened. You don't get to hallucinate and deliriously see something else. You're going to see what happened. This is not the brain saying, let's look, the girl was really just something else. No, this is exactly how it was. Now, do I believe she's an alien-human hybrid? Well, I don't have the evidence to give you. And there it is. I believe her for different reasons, because of what I felt in the connection with her. She was telling the truth. No, she didn't look like us. She was humanoid. She didn't look like you and I. But she was a person. And in that phone call, she spoke of liking earthly music. There was different musics that she talked about, pop music even. But they're here on Earth. They're not living on other planets as such. They're here on bases underground on Earth. They're here. They live here. She is from the Earth. She's just not entirely Homo sapien, as it were. But she did say in the future, one day, contact would be an open thing. It would be happening. That one day in the 21st century, this would be as common knowledge as anything. But she said that in the future, I would be telling our story. But she did talk about the lady that was claiming to be the lost mom. I won't say that whether she confirmed or denied that. I won't say that. There was a lot of need to do what they did out of different reasons, I think, they knew that they could see that the government could see the future too somehow. Capture technology from her race. They have a crystal, some kind of a crystal that may be used as a spark plug in their engines for their technology or something. Their physics is not, it's quite advanced, but it's not like something you can't understand. And somehow this large pyramid-shaped, dark, opaque crystal, in her head, I could see something about that size. It's like it was made of onyx. I don't know what color, like a dark, smoky quartz, something smooth and shiny. And it was some kind of a crystal. Now, today, physicists are creating, for the first time ever, with the Google supercomputer, time crystals. They're creating special crystals that move out of move out of time. Now, it's interesting that I have said this for many years, that she had, they have some kind of a crystal on their ships. They use it for some reason, whatever its purpose, I don't know. And the government, having captured their technology, saw these crystals, and they know the crystals. They could look into these crystals and they could see the future. They could see outcomes of events, literally like a video being played in front of them. And where I'm concerned, in many cases like mine, of a big cover-up, they could see what timeline events were playing out and what was happening. So I don't know. It's like, did they want me to talk about this incident? I'm going to say no. Did they want me to talk about the other thing with that woman? Probably not. Was all this done just to discredit me, and one day I'd be talking about it, and then it would make me look stupid saying one story mixed with another? Possibly. Like I said, it's like an all bets off thing. I mean, look, the government abruptly leaves Afghanistan. That doesn't make any sense to you and I. But if they have the ability to see the future, then it would make perfect sense to those who know, if we stayed there, what that would mean. Now, the government does that. America does this. It does strange things out of the blue. We don't know why they're doing that. Now, if they've got the means to see what's about to happen, they're monkeying around with space-time. As I said at the start of the video, the past is really where this is at. The past is where it's at. I mean, at the end of that movie, X-Men Days of Future Past I love so much, that is something that the narrator says, the actor says. He says the past is that place of endless possibilities and infinite outcomes. And it fires the imagination. You could think anything back, this is really where it's at. You can always go back to those moments in your life and say, if I had done this, I would be with this girl or that guy. They would be alive, or I would be working in this place or that place. And I do that a lot. I do often think, knowing for me personally, you don't got to believe any of this. I'm not saying believe me, you don't have to. But I do have to make a video. I do have to be public. If I've been public about it before, because I've not spoke about it in a while, in public relations, those who don't like me will run with this narrative and change it and say, well, Jason's saying he's got an alien girlfriend. Now, I may have posted somewhere there's a care or a kind or an affection or love for this injured person, a victim I saw and witnessed. I never suggested this was a partner or this is my wife or something. This was someone, any of you standing there that night with me would have done the same thing. And you, in my place, would be sitting where I'm at right now doing the same thing. And you'd be very vocal about it. And you'd be trying to tell everybody. They're real. They're real. But the biggest issue is that, are they in danger? Is our government, are they harming them? Are they raping them? I mean, there's males and females. I mean, maybe people could get away with just having sex with them. They have, what? If they've got no citizen rights, they can do whatever they want, carte blanche, what they want with them. And why don't the ones that made them, these aliens that protect them, why don't they come down and fire weapons and photon torpedoes and blow up everybody? What the hell is going on? That they have these these alleged government contracts with aliens where they're really quite prisoners. They're prisoners of contracts with people on Earth. I don't know. Look, I like to speak about something when I know what I'm talking about. I don't want to go there or go there because I didn't witness any of that. I don't have those contracts in front of me. I don't have that information. So I don't want to go there. That's speculation. But I can tell you that it did look like there was some kind of a secret war going on. A power play between the American government and this other race. And it was ongoing. But I have to do this video because the narrative is being pulled away from me. And people are trying to say, he's crazy, he said she's an alien girlfriend. And this is coming from people that do drugs, smoke pot, do a lot of cocaine, that run around blackmailing women into sex with videos and pictures. And these are deviant, miscreant perverts running around. You know, like, well, what are you? You're calling me crazy. What are you? What the hell are you? You know, look what you're doing. If I got a girl in my life, they will use this against me. The fact that I have said this. And this is being used against me. We seem to be living in a world ever more dominated by internet porn and how it's impacted the culture of the human race in a very negative way. And in some ways, she's influenced me and her mind, the way it works. People praise the way I think. I'm like, really, you're praising her. Don't give me credit. But the human civilization seems to have been deeply and negatively impacted by the internet pornography, to such an extent that drug abuse is now a commonplace. Violence against women is accepted. Certain sexual practices have become normal, like sodomy or anal sex or things of this nature. Really bizarre sexual practices. The use of torture. Submission. Domination and submission. Rather than love making, it's become an issue of domination and submission. Human civilization seems to be disintegrating and degrading at the core center as a consequence of this activity online. While it may be normal for two to do something in a bedroom, to some extent, as long as it's not abusive on the other person, but to film and video this, and then anything that's filmed and videoed, it's 100% it's put online. If any man threatens you and says, do what I want or I'll put it online, they've already put it online. You're already online. Strangers are already copulating and masturbating to the indecent images of you with this individual. You are already involved in sex trafficking, and to some extent you are already, yes, you are already a victim of this activity. And this activity seems to be degrading the moral center and the cultural and moral productive center of the human civilization as a whole. Your social system, your sociology, seems to be dominated by this black market culture of drug abuse, drug dealing, and abusive activities on vulnerable people. The strong seem to victimize the weak in this world, this planet. The strong seem to be victimizing and dominating the weak for pleasure, for gain, for some kind of a gratification, self-gratification, having to do with their own insecurities. They need to present themselves as being superior to some extent to what they see as a submissive person. They need to dominate. They need to adorn themselves with strange clothing or lots of tattoos, or behave in such a fashion that seems to be virile, or extremely violent or aggressive. This behavior was noted in the ancestors of the human civilization long ago. The ancestors of the human race, going back 100,000 years, were seen to be behaving this way. And it was an alien civilization that helped progress the human race out of the caves. What's being seen is that this activity is returning to a time when quantum mechanics is making breakthroughs and you're about to go to the stars. You're now also jetting back tens of thousands of years with certain behaviors. You need to grow up as a civilization, is what she would say. You need to become more mature. Stop this adolescent behavior, this destructive, dominant, submissive behavior against each other. When you victimize children and abuse them, you're only destroying your own civilization. You're only annihilating yourselves. You're bringing yourselves closer and closer to the inevitable extinction event of the human race. Beniico, she told me to call her that, did tell me that one day in the 21st century the human race would face extinction, that you would die from a pandemic, that there would be pandemics. I have written that in my book, dated 2013, that there was a great event of these things would be happening. And then in the 2020s, I said there would be a lot of this happening, and then 2027 would be a moment where they would jump out and say, here we are, only because an emergency would need to stop the human race from continuously self-destroying itself, or its feudal nature of a need to dominate, the submissive dominant side of things is getting rather out of hand. People are being deeply, deeply affected by the activity online. And this kind of behavior, this depraving behavior, is not about religious issues or it's against God or something. It's just that it's very destructive for the social and economic growth of your civilization. So you can't go around, what are you going to do, outlaw porn? Is it really at the center of all this? It's a component of many elements of what's destroying the human civilization at this point, and what brought on this recent pandemic. Now, the human civilization does not go into extinction because of an intervention in 2027, as she told me. But it gets to that, it gets near enough. You've got more pandemics coming, more variants that no vaccine will protect you against, and the death toll will be in the tens of millions all at once within a matter of weeks. There'll be a collapse of the economic system. Everything goes crashing. And that's when her civilization, and they call themselves the Sasani, and she said that means the living light. It is their name for themselves. They're not here to solve our problems. She said they have problems of their own. Only in this adventure where they jump in to intervene, the human race rebuilds on its own and realizes we got to clean up our act. It's time to stop this. Then she said that's when contact is open between two civilizations, and it begins with more civilizations, and in the 21st century we begin to build into the real life, this is going to sound stupid, a real life Star Trek scenario. It becomes the dream of Gene Roddenberry begins there. where the contact event happens, and then there's like a beginning of jumping into the galaxy and having contact, where we clean up our act and start behaving ourselves, and because we face a near death, a near extinction. And I mean, when I say extinction, I mean you're facing the possibility of every single one of you on this planet dying, and there's no more human beings in existence. An event you avoided with the nuclear war you never had with Russia and America. Well, that was also an intervention back in the 1970s from their civilization. That was them. There are cases reported where UFOs were seen flying over Russian and American bases, and they could switch on and switch off the nuclear weapons in the silos. And it was a message sent to the governments then. We're here. We can stop you, is what they were saying. But we hope you do it yourselves. Then that started talks, peace talks, between Ronald Reagan and the Russian president. That started a lot of peace talks and ended a lot of stuff. But again, the world won't really know those stories. But that's okay. The aliens aren't fixing our problems, but we do need help. If you're about, you're here, and they feel morally obligated. They're like, well, look, we care about them. Even if they think we're a threat to them and they create Hollywood movies that we're going to invade, we help them too. There's a help that goes back that way. It's a mutual help. It's not they save us. And they don't ask us to change our belief systems or stop going to church. You will do what you think is good for you. All right, look, I'm going to stop here. Thank you very much.